This is a bit stranger.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, mate, how are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm going to turn the music off.
John, you got the delivery sorted on the second time around?
Did you send the new person out for me?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, I owe you. I owe you for that.
It was complicated today because we had a smaller group. So the couriers booked everything with one person. So he was just doing one long drop off across the island. So it was easier to come back and anyway.
It's confused when you call me.
Yeah. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get going. Okay, so welcome to our 2015 retrospective of the Antonin Guyon wines. I've got a particular affinity or particular liking for this label, having been able to do this tasting. I think it's 3 times, subsequent occasions over the last few years. The last one being just before the end of 2019. So I haven't looked at them at all since then. So it's going to be super interesting to see where they're heading. The stamp that came out of it the last time was that, with the exception of the pomade, which I don't think we're looking at tonight anyway, with the exception of the pomade, there's this incredible silkiness, like a sort of cashmere smoothness that seems to emulate all the way through the Guyon wines. as a house style, and they can only be showing that even better. I delved through the Berghound reports this morning again on these various wines. He looked at them mainly in barrel, and they will definitely have evolved significantly from there. I think that of everything that we're looking at tonight, there were only two where he made the point of there being some tannic construct. But most of them were really, even in the barrel, showing a wonderful DNA and a sense of purpose. So it started in the 1960s by Antonin Guyon. His two sons.
Hey, Rob, sorry. Have you got your screen up? Because it's coming along as blank on mine.
That better?
There we are. Yep, that's good.
It's because I'm using multiple screens. I'll have to just work on the one. Okay. Owned and operated today by Antonin's sons, Dominique and Michel. What makes it quite a distinctive operation is that they have parcels in 15 different appellations, which is really quite extraordinary. And usually it's only the gargantuan labels like Chateau, etc., that have the ability over time to develop that. So there's some total of 47 hectares is quite an interesting counterpoint to that. They're well integrated within the region, but still today are probably recognized mostly for their Gevrey and Merceau. So the wines we're looking at tonight, starting at the first one, the Antonin Guyon, Beaune, Clos, dela, Chaume, Gaufriot, that's their monopole. In other words, it's when the word monopole shows up, that's actually an individual walled-off vineyard owned specifically by them. It's quite distinctive from many other examples around Burgundy where people are sharing vines, sharing vineyards. Sometimes a family will only literally have a few plants in a row. So it's quite the opposite to that. Then we're going into Chorey-Les to taste the Le Chandon, slightly less expensive wine. And then upping the ante from there on, we'll be tasting Premier Crus from Volnay, from Aloxe Corton, and from Pernand, Leglaise. And then finishing with the Aloxe Corton Grand Cru. Again, we've spent a bit of time today making sure these wines have got lots of air. And the Grand Cru 3 years ago, when we looked at it, there was a little left in the bottle, which I forgot about and looked at the next day, and it was still opening up. It'd be interesting to see how it's evolved since then. Maybe at this point, you want to just have a look at the noses of all of them, see if you can pick out any commanding characteristics of them. For me, there are one or two that are bang on the notes that Berghound and the Berry Brothers people have written about, and they're really showing incredible expression. So drilling down a little bit into the Côte de Beaune, as you can see here, the first wine we're tasting is right here in the Savenny-le-Beaune. The Monopole is a tiny little 1.9 hectare space, and it's just to the west of the village of Beaune. The second one, the Chorey-Les, is further down, closer to the bottom, a much flatter part of land here. So flatter, less incline. Some would argue, and as you can see reflected in the price, the further away you go from the hills, from the incline, the less the wines cost. Then, of course, you get to the other side of the river, and the wines are no longer considered part of Burgundy. Incredible wines, but no longer in this very tiny, very prestige part of France. The third wine, the Volnay, going way further down here. It's located right here. Merceau being their most specialist. We're not looking at any of the Merceaus tonight. They're a lot more expensive. And the one comment that will definitely be made is that the Volnay is the most feminine expression, or lacy or delicate expression of the 6 wines that you tasted tonight. So that's wine number 3. Wines number 4 and 6, the Premier Cru Aloxe and the Grand Cru Aloxe, come from this area here. which is almost the most furthest reach of the Côte de Beaune before it links up this way with the Côte de Nuit. And then wine number 5 is the Pernand Vercots, which is directly opposite Aloxe Corton over here, showing a very different characteristic again. We're gonna work through that now. Any questions, please yell out. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. Right. So wine number 1. It's one that I bought.
We're not allowed to describe wines as feminine anymore. Someone slapped my wrist on the vino.
Yeah, I know. I use it with a very big, with 2 fingers crossed, John. Because I try to find a more woke definition of it, and I can't actually. It's still the clearest expression of what I'm trying to say, unfortunately. So far, I will keep working on it because I hate to reference it that way. So talking, as I said before, the walls surrounding the Monopole were built, as usual, by some Cistercian monks in the 16th century. And I'm told that all across Burgundy, there's the sense of history that exudes everywhere. Elegant. Yeah, but elegant's also a naff word, Colin. It's one that I remember when I did one of my first wine tastings in Sydney, and I used the word elegant, and I thought the lady was going to ask me to leave the class. She said that's the laziest descriptor. And in fact, I've got some clients who find me every time I write it in the newsletter. So I've run away from that one as well. Limestone and clay in this particular part near Beaune. And the one thing that sets us apart is it's considerable altitude. It's about 350 meters. So this little piece of soil is creating something very specific. Something about Beaune itself that you may find interesting is that it is the, let me see if I can, I'm going to reduce this to this so I can show you. We're over here, the 70 over here. It has only 22 premier cru climates or subplots and regions. The notes on this wine across the board have spoken about it being light-hearted and flowery, and the word straightforward gives me sweats. But let's have a look and see if we think it's the same. It's definitely evolved since 3 years ago. Is still straightforward. I quite like the influence of that cedary oak in the top palate now, which is definitely more evident than it used to be before. For me, it's not giving a lot of length. It's all about the front of the palate for me tonight. It's evolving into a beautiful color. It's really developing that, moving into the brown kind of nutmeg. And there's a deep rose, super ripe rose petal. I wouldn't confuse that light-hearted component that people seem to reference with this, because there's a backbone of minerality that's really quite nice. In its early years, I wrote, I pulled my notes out from the last time that I looked at this, and I'd written dusty, but I'm not seeing that now. I love the ripeness. It really is showing a lot of ripeness. But whatever dustiness was showing in the phenolics and in the mid palate before, it's definitely not there anymore. In terms of cellaring with this, it's getting to a point, I would say, that it still needs time. It definitely still needs time because the length is not there. The front to end of it is not entirely there yet. But at its price point of $75, I think it's batting quite well. Going to have a look at the second one. Now we're in Chorey-Les, which is the flatter area here that we spoke about before. Much more phenolics for me, and much more serious phenolics. These are 30-year-old vines. Oh, excuse the spelling mistake. Doesn't matter how many times I check it. Moderately tannic is a definition that comes through from a bunch of people for Chorey-Les itself. But at the same time, they'll talk about delicate and refined tannins. So I'm imagining that that's something that starts to manifest a little further down the track. Really prefer the nose on it to the Monopole. The Chorey is definitely just darker and more, you know, just presenting more of a story. That's beautiful. Where the first one wasn't giving length, the second one's delivering all the way through to the end. That's extraordinary value. Whatever we've got left of that, that's definitely worth drinking. Just shows what happens in an absolutely perfect vintage. I've never had the occasion to take a site from and look at subsequent vintages. I'm not sure if we even have enough to be able to do that. It would be interesting to look at this, because I really love this particular wine tonight. Something that appeals to me. I like its nuance, and the tannic structure is beautiful. It's almost like a shimmery tannic structure. Only a hectare of land, and this velvet softness on it is beautiful. You know, I hate to be old world, new world, you know, forever clanging that bell, but when one compares $65 out of New Zealand, Australia, or South Africa, I'm scratching my head to find that level of evolution from 2015. I think that's showing really well. Spelling mistakes shouting at me now because I'm looking at it. So the third one, now we're down in Volnay, and this is as far down as we're going to get in this particular tasting. Again, relatively flat. If you were looking at the altitudes of the sites, the Volnay site and the Chorey sites are pretty much the same kind of inclination to the sun. This is the one that we decided to call it elegant. It has this elegant lightness or laciness about it. It's really what it's famed for as a site. A little bit of reductive suggestion on the nose, just the slightest. That's beautiful. Start to see what an extra $50 buys you. It really is beautiful. Sort of hazelnut, chestnut, oak component. There's a reference of sappiness in this wine. I'm not seeing it here tonight. And that reference came from somebody who was tasting it a long time ago, 5, 6 years ago. for me, more about dark fruit than red fruit. And maybe some arrowroot. That the only way I can describe it is that arrowroot herb. The palate experience is phenomenal because it's just seamless. It just flows. It's faultless from beginning to end. Really is beautiful now. And showing some serious evolution after 3 years. It's interesting how, for me, at this stage, it's less about fruit and more about texture and integrated fruit and oak. The oak is definitely playing a part, but not in a negative way. It's giving lots of spice, which I would imagine is originating from there. There is a delicacy to it and a laciness, but I'm massively impressed by the integration of it, the textural integration of it. That's one to come back to. You guys are drinking with a bit more volume than I am, so it might be different for you, but I'm finding that the phenolics of 1 and 3 are holding themselves quite well. Number 2, the Chorey-Les Beaune is much softer on the nose going back to it and comparing it to the other 2. Yeah, it's strange how that phenolics just vanished on me. That initial brightness, that zest, that verve that one has is still there, even with very little wine left in my glass. Coincidentally, a friend of mine, who I think might be on the site tonight, tells me that today's a leaf day. If any of you follow the organic tasting calendar, yesterday was a flower day, and she only likes to drink on flower days. So we helped her celebrate Flower Day yesterday. Certainly not getting any negative impact in my tasting tonight. So looking at Aloxe Corton, now this is 2 wines are coming from Aloxe Corton, 4 and 6. One, the Premier Cru, and the other, the Grand Cru. Interesting to see how Berghound rates the 2. Pretty close to each other, really, from a ratings point of view. Although when you look at his actual tasting notes, he gives much credence to the Grand Cru. So we'll look at that in some depth now. People write about in many texts about the darkness of the soil, the richness of the soil, and they speak how this translates into a more forceful, more rugged kind of wine. Similar soils, not particularly different from any other soils that we've tasted tonight, but I quite like the one reference to Aloxe Corton producing solid but opulent tannins. So you might want to just give some thought to that in terms of how the tannins here contrast particularly to number 3, which is so supple and so evolved and open. It's almost a Chambol thing coming in the flavor profile for me. So almost that iron filings. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe more flintiness. definitely more about dark fruit and maybe even a raw meatiness. But all of that is wrapped up still in a freshness, which seems to endure. Sorry, Mark, I missed your comment. Earthier, yeah. Yeah, it's stony. It's not the flint. You're right. That's exactly the right word. I'm just amazed by how they've got that confidence in number 4, the Premier Cru, the Vercots, how they've still retained a freshness and a vitality to the wine, but at the same time weaving into that this sort of dark, almost marauding strength or spirit in the wine. It's really good. The tannic structure is way more prevalent than the first 3. But not in a nasty way. But certainly, these 2 wines are certainly ones that would bear consideration as food wines for sure. Because any kind of animal protein or fat against, with it would balance perfectly. Another thing that appeals to me with the Vercots is a sense of precision. It's very clearly defined what it's doing from beginning to end. The length is there. Everything is neat and in its place. It's well edited, if that's a bad word to use. I'm not sure. Forgive me, but it has that kind of sense of completeness about the wine itself. So let's have a look.
So Rob, when do you think this would be sort of prime, really in the zone?
I would say at least another 3 to 5 years, because that tannic evidence for me in the mid palate is still quite significant.
Because it's still quite aggressive, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's not unpleasant, but it would be more enjoyable once those tannins just die down a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's got the structure there, which is great, but it's a little bit aggressive still.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. I couldn't find what I'd written specifically during the live tasting of it. But it always. I think my thinking about Chambol as a reference is probably because I was identifying some sort of metallic minerality about it. But as you say, just drinking, even having water and going back to it, that tannic thing is definitely there.
I mean, with a bit of duck, it'd be fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Really good. But so what does the winery recommend? What do they see as a sort of typically for this vineyard?
If you bear with me, I've actually got the note online.
We'll go back to it. That's fine.
All right. Now, once I finished all this stuff, I'll pull it out because I've got Berghound's call on that somewhere.
Okay, thanks.
So let's go to the Grand Cru. Aloxe Corton, Grand Cru. Having tasted the Vercot, I'm kind of bracing myself for a lot of tannin in the Grand Cru. Less tannin for me. I don't know how you guys feel, but it's actually more evolved texturally. What's the PV, Mark? Mark, what do you mean PV? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, never mind. I think that the Grand Cru was already hinting on the nose because it's showing a resolution about it. There's a vibrancy and it's wonderful. And for me, there's a sleekness in the phenolics and the palate. It's clearly a superior. We're going back to that. I just wanted to look at the two Aloxes side by side, having come from the same sites. or similar sites. Yeah, in the Grand Cru, the opulence is there. It's beautiful. It's got this rounded, silky finish in the palate that's so good. Thinking of violets, there's also a cleanness about it that I really like in the Grand Cru, the sense of being finished. Kind of get to see why people go crazy for Grand Cru when you look at that. Yeah, it's actually for me more ready than the Vercots. So going back to number 5, just to show you where Pernand Vergès is again. So 4 and 6 were over here, and Pernand Vergès is here. Sort of sits between Savigny-le-Beaune and Aloxe Corton. Only 8 single cru sites and 1 we're drinking today. East or south facing, which is golden, which is what people are after. It's interesting how people reference Pernand Vergès as, if you're looking at it in the glass, a giveaway of it is bluish tints. I'm giving it my best shot. I'm not seeing any bluish tints. I'm not sure what that reference is about. Interesting thing here is that this is the only soil type of the 4 regions that we're looking at tonight that has this metallic flint content to it. And interesting to really well-written piece from Berries talking about strawberry and spice when it's young, and then as it evolves, it gets this underbrush meatiness about it. Plums for sure. Yes, Lou, I mean, this one from a tannic position, not nearly as tannic as 4.
No.
Much smoother and evolved for me. In fact, the development on it is terrific. I'm a big fan. What does this one cost? 80? Yeah, 80. It's 89 to 92 spread. So Burgon would have looked at it in the barrel.
Mate, what's that note in these wines? I mean, you're a Negroni fan. They keep on giving me, especially this one, an echo of Negroni that sort of.
Are you thinking of citrus?
Yeah, well, no, it's that sort of orange rindy type thing. Yeah. Maybe citrus, I guess, but
yeah,
which is not what
the rind, maybe the roasted rind component.
Yeah, that type of idea, right? Because it just gives me an echo of Negroni on the palate, which is bizarre.
I think Lou, that's one of the most strangest references that you've ever made, and one of the most sensible, because that's exactly what it's like Campari and sweet vermouth, isn't it?
Exactly. That's what I'm getting.
What about the gin? It's an Americano. It's not a Negroni, it's an Americano.
But John, are you getting the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, very suggestible that you put it in my head, but
sorry.
Don't be sorry. Quite pleasant.
But, I didn't expect it, but that's what I'm getting. So
let me just see if I put together a final lineup of them all in a row. No, I didn't. Let me just go back to just to show you the pricing all in one place.
A little bit.
What really interests me is the quality of this Pernand Vergès. The quality of it and its price point has caught me by surprise. I never flagged it as being anywhere close to as ready and as evolved and just all together in a glass this time. I'm really surprised by that. I'm forever trying to find value in Burgundy, which is a bit of a lost cause, but this is one of those occasions where it is value.
Yeah, it's actually not impossible. I know, we love sort of talking about the DRCs and Moray into this world, but
Yeah.
there are actually some of the smaller producers and lesser known ones are punching out some really good wines at reasonable still prices.
I mean, seriously, if again referencing Mornington River, Mornington region in Victoria, $80 doesn't buy you a heck of a lot of real estate these days.
Not anymore.
And it blows me away for its price point. It really does.
Well, it's a little bit of an anomaly to have a branded house of such history that hasn't sort of quadrupled in price in the last 5 years. So
yeah.
Maybe it's about to. I don't know, but it's yeah.
I love those Albert Moreau wines you bring in as well, Rob.
Which one's that?
Albert Moreau.
Oh, Moreau. Yeah, he's cool. Yeah.
Not that comparable to this, but you were thinking about.
Yeah, I think that for us, I think this is probably the one I love the most. Maybe because the one I've drunk the most. It might be the reason why, but I'm just amazed by the textural evolution in the wines. I think they're gorgeous. I think they really, really are smart.
Well, to be fair, you've had about 7 vintages now of Guyon, right?
Yeah.
Where Moreau just 2.
Just 2, yeah.
Well, no, sorry, we've only been using it for 2 years, right? We've only had connection for 2 years, whereas Guyon, we've had a good look at this over many years now.
Yeah.
Moreau, we managed to get some back vintage stuff of it, but you and I have really only tried it a couple of times.
Yeah.
This stuff, we've got a much deeper knowledge of.
Yeah. Keep coming back to that number 5. I think it's fantastic.
Great nose.
Yeah. I'm just going to get out of the share so that I can get you that information on the windows. See if I can figure it out. I had them all set up as tabs in case someone asked. So, Mark, you're saying that it's the sweet component is something you say Pernand is recognised for.
Yeah, I think that historically Pernand Vergelès has been a little bit lighter than, say, Aloxe Corton, but it has good sweetness, but with probably a bit less acid and tannin.
Okay.
It's quite a complete wine, but doesn't have the length that, say, the Aloxe Corton or the Corton, or maybe even the Volnay have. Though the house style here, I'm getting a lot of, probably with the exception of the Pernand Vergelès, very similar house style. You get a lot of softness to these wines. It's almost like a rosy rose petal aromas I'm getting from them.
It's definitely there. I kept picking it up all the way
softness.
through it.
Yeah.
So, Lou, going back to our discussion on the Vercots, so that's number 4. He sees it as 2027 plus is his drinking window.
Okay, so you're right.
He tasted it X barrel.
So you're right. Still another 5 years before it really gets to its.
Sorry, what's that for number 4?
Number 4, yeah. That's the one that seemed to present the most tannic presence for me.
Yeah, it was aggressive. Wasn't it?
But
It had the elbows out.
Yeah.
So.
don't you think it'll be a bit flabby in another 4 years, 5 years?
Well, as Lou pointed out, I think just those tannins will just smooth out, just evolve a little bit more and allow more of the fruit to shine. It's just, it is leaving when you swallow, it is leaving that chalky grip, just the finest, smallest amount. And we're looking at one of the best vintages in the last 20 years out of Beaune. So we can afford to be really picky about what we're tasting.
But Rob, just going back to that Grand Cru now.
Yeah.
Again, it's just mellowing and broadening out in the glass. Really.
It's phenomenal.
It's something else.
Yeah.
Really.
especially after having tasted a Premier Cru from the same area. There's just something just top shelf in it. Unmistakably superior.
Polished, round, more developed.
And I'm really quite interested by the fact that for me, that's showing more evolution earlier as opposed to the other.
Really is. Yep. Yep.
Sleekness. There's a sleekness about it. Well, guys, I guess that's our tasting. Thanks so much for coming. I'm going to sip the rest of these wines very, very slowly and see how they develop in the next half hour before I go to bed. But it was really fantastic to drink them with you. Thank you so much.
Before you go, Rob, so what do they reckon the window is on the Grand Cru?
He didn't taste the Grand Cru.
Oh, really? What about the winery or someone? Because I think you're right. I think it's more developed and forward than the Vercots. So I'd be curious to know what they reckon the ideal window is. I'll check. The website's a little perfunctory. The French, no. And certainly with back vintage, I'm willing to bet there's nothing on there. I had to do a fair bit of digging elsewhere to get the data for us tonight. So probably not. What would you guess? The Grand Cru. Yeah. I'm super excited by how early it's showing. I think that the innate acids in it are so good. There's definitely beyond a decade of travel and more. I haven't tasted nearly enough of this kind of quality of Burgundy to have a real say. But Moon, are you there or are you just recording? She's not answering because she's probably, or even Mark. Mark's drunk a lot of Grand Cru. What do you think, Mark?
If you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Corton seems to be a bit of a shimmerer sometimes in the sense that you think it's open and you think, oh, well, I'll drink it quickly, but you then miss out on the complexity you get. I think if there's probably, of all the well-known Grand Crus of Burgundy, it's probably the least attractive and the least expressive when it's young. This one is much more expressive than I thought, but that doesn't mean that it won't develop well with age. So I would probably just chuck it in a storage bin somewhere and forget about it. And you'll get a lot more flavour and particularly aromatic complexity in it.
Got it. How do you feel about it?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I only like to drink what's ready to drink, so I kind of prefer the Pernand Verglas. But I feel that the two Aloxes have actually quite a lot of brownness. You know, it's like they seem to be evoluting faster.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the Volnay? It's a bit hard to go back.
Not ready to drink.
Yeah.
I'm going to drink my 2005.
Yeah.
That leave more ready.
Mazel tov. Okay, well, that's it then. Thanks everyone for joining us. It's terrific to be able to get feedback from you all in these wines. And I very much doubt we'll ever be able to repeat this because 15 is a vanishing breed, certainly in Burgundy. So thanks so much. Next Thursday, we're doing 2016 Barbarescos versus Barolo's. If any of you want to join, we'll be doing the blind. The idea there is to try to get an understanding of Nebbiolo from two different sites, relatively close together, and how drastically different they taste. So it's a very interesting experience, and it was one that certainly was a turning point for me when I first started drinking Italian wine not so long ago. So that's it. Good night. Thanks for coming. We'll see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.